I wanted to try and wear something that was a bit of the times that the Holdovers takes place in, which is the 1970s. And it's a movie that I saw in 2023, just recently, but not like super recent. I saw it at 12 p.m. today. And as you can see, it is in fact 12 p.m. on the other side of the world. Context here for all the Payne heads who might happen onto this video. My experience with Alexander Payne movies is somewhat slim. I've only seen his most recent 3. Those movies have been concurrent with my mainline cinema going, whatever. Why am I trying to make this sound sophisticated? I've seen Nebraska, I've seen Downsizing, and now more recently The Holdovers. Did not see The Descendants, did not see Sideways, did not see About Schmidt. These aren't even in order, by the way. I'm missing a couple that were kind of interspersed between, including the ones he's written. I have seen parts of Jurassic Park 3. Did you know he wrote parts of Jurassic Park 3? This is an interesting movie too, because I was checking it out, and apparently the guy who wrote the screenplay for The Holdovers is this long-going TV writer who wrote for shows like The Adventures of Pete and Pete and some kind of kitchen show. I can't remember. It's like Kitchen Corridor, but it wasn't Kitchen Nightmares. And this is his first feature film. He wrote for Just Shoot Me. Yeah, just an interesting amount of experience going into this movie, and this also Payne's first since Downsizing in 2019. Apparently, they started shooting it like 2-ish years ago, which I was wondering, for one, because of the setting. It takes place in a snowy New England in 1970, and so production-wise, obviously they would have had to shoot it a decent time ago. But the other thing that I was intrigued to learn was how they shot it. Because in the trailer, what caught my eye specifically was how dedicated it appeared to be trying for that film aesthetic that was a result of the technologies of like the 1970s, 1980s, where for one, you have the fuzz and the noise of film grain, along with the warmth that came with just the audio technologies of the time. At least that's how it sounded from the trailer. But as I was watching it, there were times where it seemed like the frame rate changed and everything looked more digital. And to my knowledge, it turns out that it was shot on Aries, at least according to the IMDb trivia page, which I am not just reading verbatim here. I'm just sharing some fun facts that I took away from the movie. It's just interesting how the more that I'm shooting stuff and the more that I'm putting stuff together, the more that it is real clear the difference between digital and film. Of course, people who have way more experience with the technologies are probably kind of like, well, duh. But those kinds of details are, they're just when they finally connect in the brain of like when you can tell the differences. To me, that's kind of that's the fun of the medium. And if some people get there before me, good for them. This movie, to me, felt a lot like Nebraska, and maybe I am saying that because it really is my only other rich Alexander Payne experience. These Alexander Payne movies, they exist inside of a comfortable melancholy where there's just an ongoing despair felt and carried through the movie, but in a way that tells you that ultimately everything's gonna be okay. And that kind of atmosphere I particularly enjoy in this setting of the holidays at this boarding school because, I mean, for many people, the holidays are an awkward kind of transitionary time, for one, between year to year, but also in life. When you're a younger person, if you don't have set traditions and so on and so forth, it can be an isolating time. It's been depicted this way in every single story ever written by man and by animal. The Hallmark movies are particularly, they love this trope of just the guy who's alone on Christmas, and the freaking Farrelly brothers knew how to use this trope. And I I would expect nothing less from the writers of Green Book, who also created such gems as Osmosis Jones. But Nebraska really followed that kind of atmosphere to me, especially given the black and white choice for color through the entire movie. Just kind of emphasizes the I'm probably going to say this word a lot, the melancholy of Will Forte's character as he's grappling with his dad's decline and also discovering through this absurd journey that he's going on with him that he was kind of a loser. But, you know, in that natural movie way, everyone comes to find out why they were actually rich all along. Nebraska, that's almost somewhat pun intended. The Holdovers follows a similar dynamic of just two guys who learn a lot about each other through the journey they go on. This movie follows kind of a similar gradual reveal that Nebraska did. Nebraska did it on like a literal road trip kind of metaphor. This one, it's just the journey of time through the Christmas, through the 2 weeks of Christmas, where Paul Giamatti's character and the guy played by Dominic Sessa just learn more about each other and gain a deeper empathy for one another ahead of the climax, which I'm not going to spoil. The thing that I particularly love is how Alexander, I'm just going to call him by his first name now, how Mr. Payne knows Payne. Alex, you're really good at this, man. There were many scenes inside of the movie where it takes such a strong turn in tone, and at least for me, the ability to connect with the emotional 180 is instant, and it's deep. The film uses such simple techniques as just sound changes or music changes, and you know, typical focal point changes inside of cuts and things to help accelerate that change in tone and also better emphasize when there is a moment on screen that is meant to evict some level of pathos. At first I was kind of just following along with the movie, not necessarily like along for the ride, if that makes sense, where I was just getting to know the characters and kind of feeling whatever about the world, but really getting captivated by Paul Giamatti's character, who in time grew to be more interesting and really doesn't get super interesting until around the third act. Dominic's character follows a similar kind of path, except he's more I'm trying to figure out what to say without giving away too much of the movie. And I hate that I can't just do this in one take, and I refuse to script something like this, which is just supposed to be me vomiting my thoughts, and also trying not to just say I enjoyed the movie. This could be a 5-second video. At least for me, Payne using the winter time seems like a poetic device to further emphasize that feeling of despair, since the winter has always been represented as a time of of death when the crops die and everything is resting or sleeping before something awakens in the spring, and also that same kind of transitionary feeling between something ending like the year and something beginning like the year. There are so many quite simple poetic devices that further emphasize what the point of the film is trying to be. It is, in a way, coming of age. I feel like in a way you could also describe Nebraska as, even though Will Forte is just like a 28 or 30-year-old guy who runs a stereo store. But this movie, I thought after the first maybe 20-ish minutes, 25 minutes, picks up a lot of speed and gets a lot more interesting. It turns into something that is less period piece and more human case study, where, and this is something that Payne, I've gathered, likes to do, where people of different backgrounds where people of different backgrounds come together in some way and form what is just an unlikely family. If I remember correctly, that happens in Downsizing in a way, but I still don't understand what happens in Downsizing. Overall, I enjoyed the movie. There are loads of beautiful shots of the winter. That's something that I'm not going to say is a guilty pleasure of mine, because many people love kind of the beauty that comes from something that honestly has been represented so darkly through most of history, kind of like an antithetical way. But aside from the cinematography, I like that it did try to maintain some sort of timely aesthetics. There are times where it's glaring that they're shooting on REs and not on like 35 millimeter or any other kind of iteration you could possibly get a hold of. And there's nothing wrong with that. I shoot digital because I don't have money. Honestly, the thing that's most important to me about a movie like this is that it's a movie that someone wanted to make, and it's the movie that they made. There are a lot of movies that come out that are meant to, create some kind of franchise or have some kind of market incentives, because ultimately it's show business. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but my preferences lay in directions that feel more genuine. And there are certain franchises that do well at attaining that kind of authenticity. It's certainly an art form in and of itself. But Alexander Payne, even if I don't understand what Downsizing is he's a director that takes certain risks. I mean, The Holdovers as a movie does not move fast in places. It takes its time. It leaves room to breathe. It feels so much like a movie you would see in like the 1990s, or even I'd say maybe even the early 2000s. So in that way, to me, it's so refreshing to see movies like this still exist, because not everything is about pushing the art form in a certain direction, because there are also ways to push it within a craft. And just this kind of craft is something I respect, versus things that try and cut and disorient you, or unless it is done in some sort of methodical way. And the thing that kind of stinks with art is we never know. And so sometimes, like, even I could maybe falsely assign that kind of assessment to things that, they tried. Art is strange. The Holdovers is good. If I had a copy of it, I might watch it on Christmas. It is a feel-good movie about two guys who shouldn't get along getting along. It's that story. It's been told before, but it's fun. This movie doesn't break any kind of ground, but it is kind of a comfort movie. in that way, just in the nostalgia and in the cinematography, the storytelling, the pace, everything about it. It does feel like you're going back in time, and that is something that I don't know what I'm saying here. I'm not gonna rate the movie aside from a system that my dad has come up with, which is that if you get through the whole movie, it's a 10. So the Holdovers, if I give it any rating, is a 10 out of 10. I almost walked out early, but I would have come back because my bladder was so loaded. How loaded was it? It was so loaded that I risked peeing my pants. Wouldn't want to do that in a crowded movie theater. Guy shouts fire, gets arrested. What happens if I pee? I get killed.